Julio Rodriguez has officially won the Silver Slugger, and MLB Trade Rumors has put out their predictions for the top 50 free agents on the market. Let's talk about it. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Friday, November 11th, 2022. This is Titan Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description below. Colby, before we get into our show today, let's remind folks about the giveaway that we're doing right now. We got less than a month to go before this giveaway ends. Tell the folks what they could win.
Baseball cards and stuff. So yeah, next up on the on our little check sheet here is we got to get to 4,500 YouTube subscribers, and we'll give away an autographed Taylor Trammell card, number 83 out of 99. And then after that, it's kind of a combo one. It's 4,500 YouTube subs and 3,000 on Twitter. We'll give away this cool Jared Kelenic card. It is 60 out of number 199. It is autographed. I think it's the best looking card of the one we're giving away personally. So that's out there. And then probably the biggest one. Whatever. If we get to 5,000 subs on YouTube, it doesn't matter how many followers we have on Twitter for this particular card, but we'll give away an autographed Cal Raleigh card, autographed Cal Raleigh rookie card, I guess I should say. That's for 5,000 subs. And then, there's a big one. If we overtake Locked On Astros as the number one MLB podcast on YouTube in the Locked On Network, I'll give away this really cool numbered autographed Mike Cameron card, which really don't want to give away, but you guys aren't really making me sweat it that much, so I'm feeling pretty good that we're going to keep that card. At this rate, y'all aren't even going to get the Taylor Trammell, which is or about 220, 250, somewhere in that range away from even giving that away. So I'm going to have a bunch of free cards. Well, not free, but I'm going to get to keep a bunch of my cards. They're going to be awesome. And you guys will just lose. Somebody right now, the only thing you guys are getting is a Taylor Dollard card. Just saying. Takes like 10 seconds to hit the subscribe button. So yeah, it's true. Maybe you don't want the Cal Raleigh card. I will enjoy it. You have less than a month. December 8th, I think. So
yeah, December 8th, the day after the winter meetings in. And so, you got less than a month to go on that. So subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Tell your dog to subscribe. Tell your mom, your dad, your enemies, all that good stuff to subscribe to the Locked On Mariners podcast on YouTube. And if you're listening to this, head on over to our YouTube. Search Locked On Mariners. This podcast is also in video form if you did not know that. All right, so our first topic of the day, Julio Rodriguez is taking home some hardware, and this is probably not the last award that he will win this offseason, but it's a pretty big one, Colby. Silver Slugger. He was one of the 3 American League outfielders to win the Silver Slugger, along with Mike Trout and, of course, Aaron Judge. And this makes a ton of sense because Julio was 3rd amongst all qualified American League outfielders in WRC Plus this year at 146. He slashed 284, 345, 509. He was worth 5.3 F4. He had 28 home runs, 25 stolen bases, and struck out 25.9% of the time while walking 7.1% of the time as a 21-year-old rookie. So congratulations to Julio Rodriguez. Colby, what's your thoughts on Julio winning this award?
Probably bodes pretty well for his chance to win Rookie of the Year, which is the only award I care about because it's the only award that comes with real consequence for the team. of the player that wins it, right? If he wins Rookie of the Year, the Mariners are going to get an additional draft pick. Sounds like it'll be essentially an additional first round pick. Right after the end of between round one and competitive balance round A is what it sounds like, which I believe is going to be 29th overall. So with that 29th overall pick comes the bonus money that goes along with it, which is, I believe, an extra about $2 million to throw into the bonus pool, which, if you guys don't know, you only have X amount of money to spend on the first 10 rounds of the draft. And if you go over that by more than 5%, then you start losing first round draft picks in the future. So the more money you have, the more picks you have, the more creative you can get in your draft, blah, blah, blah. So that's the one that really matters. I believe that one is going to be given out on Monday or Tuesday of next week. So we should know then. Julio is one of the 3 finalists there. I would think, again, him winning this award is a pretty good precursor. It was a really great class this year for rookies. In most years, Stephen Kwan would have ran away with it. Adley Rutschman would have ran away with it. George Kirby would have ran away with it. Jeremy Pena would have ran away with it. But as it stands right now, all those guys are going to finish behind Julio, and that's just how good the rookie class was. So, well earned for the Silver Slugger. Like I said, to me, it just bodes pretty well for the fact that he's going to win Rookie of the Year. And I think Julio's probably about to enter, the stage where he's just going to win awards just because he's Julio Rodriguez. It's
right. Yeah.
It's not so much that he hasn't earned them, but once you get a couple, once you win a Gold Glove, right, you tend to win more because, he's won one before. So I feel like Julio is just going to start collecting Silver Sluggers despite having good but not great years. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, oh yeah, but it's Julio, so give him one.
Maybe there'll be a year where he's 8th in WRC plus amongst all outfielders,
and
or something like that, but he still gets it. Yeah. And yeah, I think this bodes well for his Rookie of the Year case as well. And also, while ultimately the winner of that is decided upon by the writers, I think it also, Major League Baseball wants to prove that their new system works, right? That if you can, if you don't service time a guy, you bring him right up on the roster right away, and he ends up winning Rookie of the Year, they've made all these changes with the new CBA to prevent service time manipulation and all that. So I think they also kind of make an example out of Julio.
Right. Here. And Adley is not that guy this year. Kwan would be. Adley is not. If Adley wins Rookie of the Year, the Orioles get nothing because he didn't make the opening day roster. And that's kind of the you can still win Rookie of the Year, but you're not eligible for the draft pick unless you make the opening day roster. And they spend, I think it's 116 days or something in the big leagues. So Julio and Kwan are the only 2 that are eligible for that. Even if George Kirby won, the Mariners would not get the draft pick. So it's kind of a cool new system, a cool new incentive. And Julio is probably going to have given the Mariners that honor, that reward for the first time. And it also sounds like the Mariners are probably still going to get a competitive round B pick as well. So they might end up with 2 extra draft picks in next year's draft, which, again, all about bonus pool and building this thing, continuing to build this thing. So, yeah, Silver Slugger, fantastic. Congrats to Julio. But the big one is early next week, I think on the 14th, which would be Monday. Okay. So we should I don't know what time they'll announce that. That's typically around 4:00. So we probably won't be talking about it on Monday, but maybe Tuesday we'll be talking about the American League Rookie of the Year, Julio Rodriguez.
Well, congratulations to Julio Rodriguez once again. An incredible season for him, and soon to be the American League Rookie of the Year, I believe. So we're going to switch gears and look at MLB trade rumors as predictions for the top 50 free agents on the market. A few of their writers picked the Mariners for some of those free agents, so we're going to go over those deals and react to them here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. So, MLB Trade Rumors has put out their collective predictions for the top 50 free agents on the market like they always do. They are also running a contest, if you want to enter that, where you send in your own free agent predictions, and I think the closest who gets to it wins a prize. But yeah, so they've handed out predictions. This is Steve Adams, Tim Dierks, Anthony Franco's, and Dara McDonald's predictions for the top 50 free agents on the market. And so let's go through some of these that have the Mariners predicted to land these guys. The first one on the list is Xander Bogaerts. They have Bogaerts landing a 7-year, $189 million deal, and McDonald predicts the Mariners for Xander. So what's your reaction to a 7-year, $189 million contract for Xander?
Feeling pretty good because that's basically what we came up with. That's kind of what we thought he could get, and I'm totally okay with that. That is well within the range of respectability. It is what $27 million a year for Xander. I think that's right in line with what he's worth. And yeah, I feel like, you kind of look at what other predictions were made for the shortstops. You have 8 and 268 for Turner. And for Correa, it's 9 and 288. Like if those are my options, or I can get Xander for 7 and 189, I'm picking Xander over both of the other guys. So yeah, I think that's about what it's going to be. I could see maybe he pushes 200 million. But I think it's probably going to be in that 7 to 8 years, and I think it's going to be between 180 and 210. So I think that's pretty good estimate. And we've talked about Xander's fit in Seattle. It makes a lot of sense, and he's also a guy who probably would be more open to moving to second base right now than any of the other options. So I think that's a pretty good call. I would be quite happy if the Mariners got Xander for 7 and 189.
Yeah, that's a really good deal. You and I, in trying to project a deal for Xander, came to 7 years, 196.
Yeah.
So pretty close. So yeah, I would be thrilled if the Mariners were able to land Xander Bogaerts at that deal, especially when you compare it to Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, the other contracts that they have listed here. So the next one on the list, you have to go down to number 19. That's Jose Abreu. And Tim Dierks has the Mariners signing Jose Abreu to a 2-year, $40 million deal. So $20 million AAV for the older Jose Abreu, who plays first base and DH exclusively. What do you think about that deal for the Mariners?
Not a fan.
Yeah.
Abreu's a really good player still. He can definitely hit. But you have Ty France. So essentially what you're doing is you're signing Abreu to be an everyday DH. I mean, first base, he'll play some first base too, but that's not what the Mariners want to do. They want to have the DH kind of be for the fourth outfielder who's not playing in that day. Abreu, there's definitely a point where you just need offensive production. And so it doesn't matter if it's not the perfect fit positionally, but I don't think Abreu is going to be on the market long enough for the Mariners to get to that point. If that makes sense, where they just we need offense, period. I think 2 and 40 is pretty aggressive as well. Again, for a 36-year-old who's just first base. So I would not be a huge fan of that. Abreu's a really good player. He would certainly hit, probably third in this Mariners lineup. He would be an upgrade to the offense, but he's not a very good fit roster wise. And that money I think can be spent in better and more creative ways. So I'm not a huge fan of that call. Again, if we go into spring training and Jose Abreu is a Mariner, I'm not going to be mad, but I'm just not a huge fan of that fit and that call. Because I think the only way he's a Mariner is if we get into January and Seattle kind of struck out on the shortstops and they got a couple pretty good outfielders, but no real impact bats, and they're just like, screw it, like let's go give Abreu 1-16, and he can be the DH, and that's how we're gonna get the offense that we want. Like that, I could see that scenario. I don't see 2 years for Abreu is kind of a jumping off point for me, anyways.
Yeah, and $20 million a year for a guy that is essentially your Carlos Santana replacement.
Yeah,
or your Ty France replacement, and France is your Santana replacement. It's not a great use of resources there. If you can get Abreu for like $15 million a year, I'm a little bit more on board. It's just $20 million. That's such a huge part of your available payroll. I mean, Jerry DiPoto's already talked about how, giving $20 million to Mitch Haniger was going to eat a lot of their available payroll. So, we don't know exactly how much money DiPoto and Hollander have to work with right now, but it would seem like Abreu would cut into a significant portion of that. And that just doesn't seem like a great use of resources. But again, like Colby said, if you get to a point in the offseason where Abreu is still available and you haven't really added that impact bat, you haven't been able to add that impact bat, then it starts to make a bit more sense, even though that roster-wise it's still a little bit of a conundrum where you're locking up DH for either France or Abreu, where they're basically kind of rotating in and out of there and the other one plays first base. So I'm not a huge fan either. But also, like you said, I wouldn't complain if Jose Abreu is a Seattle Mariner in 2023. He's a really good player. He's a guy that's going to hit, potentially 300 plus and, give you 20, 30 home runs, right? Like, I'm not complaining about that at all. Next up on the list is just one spot down, Mitch Haniger. This one's a little bit silly. Both Adams and Dierks have the Mariners landing Mitch Haniger at 3 years, $39 million. Yeah.
The level of disrespect shown to Jerry DiPoto to think that he would give Mitch Haniger 3 fully guaranteed years. Get out of here with your nonsense. That's stupid. And any team that gives Mitch Haniger 3 guaranteed years, they're stupid. Just straight up, they're stupid. So, Mitch Haniger coming back,
$13
fine,
million
whatever.
AAV.
That's fine. Like, that's fine.
13 million AAV sounds a little bit larger than we're expecting.
I think it's going to be like 8 to 10 or 11, to be honest with you. But 13's in the ballpark. Yeah. Fine, whatever.
Sure. But for 3 guaranteed years, I don't think that any team is going to give him that. With the injury history, with the lack of production, when he has been able to get on the field, and people are not going to pay for they're not going to pay for 2021 Mitch Haniger either, right? Like,
no.
What have you done for me lately? And what Mitch Haniger has done lately does not warrant 3 guaranteed years. No. That's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. Mm-hmm. So, this one gets a thumbs down from me as well. All right, so at number 25, this one is really interesting. JD Martinez. And Anthony here has the Mariners landing JD Martinez at 2 years, $30 million. So a very similar situation to Jose Abreu for $5 million less AAV. Do you feel the exact same about this as you do with Abreu? Are the feelings a little bit different on that? What are you thinking?
It's pretty similar to Abreu. Just don't really see the fit of a full-time DH on this roster right now. And that's what Martinez is. I mean, I know he can stand out in left field, but you just went an entire season using a guy who can literally just stand in left field. Did you feel great about it? Because I didn't. So, Martinez is still a pretty good hitter, but it was a bit of a down year for him. It felt like we're starting to see kind of the decline of JD. But again, he's still a very solid hitter. I think CTZ wise, he fits pretty well in the Mariners lineup. But he's just kind of seems like he's an older player who's kind of in a decline. He can't play in the outfield really at all. You're not giving 2 years to a guy who can't help you defensively. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, and not for a guy who's coming off of a down year. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't hate it. But it just, like, to me, like, if you're gonna settle for a full-time DH, why not just go give Nelson Cruz $9 million and be like, here you go, Nelson,
Right.
you're the DH. Like, you already know that guy fits in your clubhouse. You know that guy's going to fit in the city. JD better than Nelson Cruz at this stage of his career? Yeah, of course he is. But what's the point? Like, if it's 1 year for Nelson Cruz or 2 years for JD Martinez, and I have to pick one of those one of those two options, I'm picking the 1 year for Nelson Cruz because it's an easier contract to get out from under. So I just don't see a fit here, to be perfectly honest with you.
Up next on the list, Franco has the Mariners signing a favorite of mine, left-handed reliever Andrew Chafin, to a 2-year, $18 million contract. So $9 million AAV for Chafin, who's coming off of a really, really good season in Detroit. 57 in the third innings pitched, 10.52 Ks per nine, 2.98 walks per nine, 2.83 ERA, 3.06 FIP. And obviously he's rocking the fro and the handlebar mustache. It's a great look. So for a reliever, you got to be a little unhinged to be a reliever in Major League Baseball, and Andrew Chafin embodies that and then some fully. So what do you think about 2 years, $18 million for someone like Andrew Chafin?
I'm good. I don't want to give any reliever $9 million, to be quite honest.
It's a lot.
Especially since, Jerry is so good at not giving relievers $9 million and getting like $12 million worth of value out of them.
And also, let's be real about it. When he has given relievers money, it hasn't particularly worked.
Yeah, it's typically his worst moves have been when he's decided to pay a reliever. Just so you guys are aware, how much is $9 million really? Well, Andres Munoz is going to make $6 million over the next 3 years total. So, $9 million is a lot for a guy. And Chafin, to me, he's not a high leverage guy. He's, a solid lefty. He's fine. And if you're in a situation where it's, Jordan and Bregman and Tucker in like the 7th, fine, you can use Chafin. And Chafin's good against righties too. And I'm not saying he's a loogie or anything, but like, hey, you know who else you could use? Eric Swanson. You know how much Eric Swanson's going to cost you? $1.5 million. Like, I just $9 million on a reliever
might cost you only like $4 million.
Yeah, like, this just feels again like, oh, the Mariners have to have a lefty, so Chafin's pretty good. Just give him the standard good reliever contract, which is like $8 to $10 million a year. It just feels forced, and I just whatever. I'm not opposed to Chafin, and even at that number, I'm like, okay, whatever. But like again, the Mariners have a budget. They can't just go writing checks for $9 million to guys who are going to give them 50 innings and just do that repeatedly over and over again. I just trust Jerry to find somebody who can do what Chafin does, but for like $3 million instead of $9 million. So I'm not a huge fan of that on that one.
Yeah, to me, this is a deal that you do after you've done your heavy lifting. After you've completed your heavy lifting. Like, let's say the Mariners, they've signed their shortstop, or they've, signed 2 big outfielders, and they've acquired a middle infielder via trade, or what have you. Right? At that point, once the heavy lifting is done, and they've spent the money that they need to in order to fill out their biggest needs, then yeah, if they want to go pay $9 million a year to Andrew Chafin, cool, great. I'm all about that. But like Colby said, this team has proven time and time again, and specifically Jerry Dipoto and crew have proven time and time again the ability to find relievers, high leverage relievers, and grab them out of just thin air, basically, And so I don't need to go spend $9 million on a guy when I know that my pitching development system works and that my front office has a really good eye for pitching talent that is just kind of on the fringes of the market. All right, so lastly, the last deal on this list is it gives me a good little chuckle. Steve Adams here has the Mariners signing Gene Segura to a 2-year, $18 million contract. Clearly, Steve does not keep up with things that go on in the Mariners clubhouse or news stories that have recently come out about Gene Segura and the Mariners organization, where Segura has talked about a member of the Mariners organization going on social media and tweeting basically racist things, and that was a reason that he reportedly felt uncomfortable being in the Mariners organization there towards the end. There was obviously the fight between him and D. Gordon that was reported. Gene Segura clearly, after what he said in that story, does not want to come back to Seattle.
No,
that's the end of the story. So this is a non-starter for me.
Yeah, like in Steve's defense, if you ignore all of that, Segura does make a lot of sense for the Mariners. He did towards the top of the order. He's a pretty good second baseman. He's relatively cheap. Like, yeah, like Segura's a good fit. Doesn't strike out. Like, yeah, he checks a lot of the boxes for the Mariners. Unfortunately, he hates the organization's guts, and I don't think the Mariners are too thrilled with him either. So, yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. So, like, if you ignore all the real stuff that matters, Segura's a great fit. But we can't, so it's not going to work out. Like just in a just like, let's live in this goofy reality here. If Gene Segura did sign that deal with the Mariners, you'd be pretty happy about that, right? Be like, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a good player at a good price, yeah, sure. But again, you have to factor in the reality of the situation. And that reality means that Gene Segura goes from a great fit for the Mariners to somebody who's not even on their board, more than likely. So, hey, if Segura is the starting second baseman next year for some odd reason, I'll be happy. Like, cool, that's solid. But it'll take me a few months to like actually believe that transpired in our reality. So, yeah, it's a good fit, but you're just missing kind of the biggest red flag of any free agent.
Yeah, it's just the I forget which article it was, but Segura talked about his time in Seattle and made some claims that I'm not necessarily saying if they're true or not, but and so that just from his perspective, at least, it seems like he's not at all interested in ever coming back to Seattle.
It would be pretty similar to like if the Mariners rehired Dr. Lorena Martin, right? Like,
right.
It just, not that they're not qualified, not that they're not, fits or whatever, but it's like, it's no. Like, you close the door on some people in some situations. You just close it forever and you don't open it ever again. Gene Segura falls into that category. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Kevin Mather being fired was literally the only thing that needed to happen for Segura to be happy, but like,
maybe the member of the organization that Segura was referring to in that article no longer works in the organization, and maybe it was Kevin Mather himself, right?
Based on what we know Kevin Mather will say in front of people, it's kind of believable. So maybe that's true. It. But I kind of doubt it. So I wish Gene luck, but he's not going to be a Seattle Mariner.
Yeah, Gene's fun. Gene's a great player. Gene's a fun guy to have around the clubhouse, at least, if your name's not D. Gordon.
Fans.
For fans. Yeah. And obviously,
maybe a bit of a headache.
We don't know everything. Obviously, we're not the ones that were in the clubhouse or anything like that. So, I'm not going to claim anything or speak anything on Gene Segura's name. But just from the outside looking in, it just doesn't seem like that relationship is going to be mended anytime soon.
And it is worth noting again that there are 0 holdovers from the previous locker room. When Gene Segura left, there are 0 players still playing that were on that team as well, for the Mariners at least. So, I mean, maybe it's possible. I'll give Steve that it's possible that maybe the fences can be mended, but Scott Service is still there. The entire coaching staff pretty much is still there. Jerry DiPoto's still there. So
So even if the person even if the person that Segura had issue with is gone, it's possible that he still holds ill will towards Service or DiPoto for any role that they may have played in that situation as well. Who knows, right? We're speculating. We're podcasting our socks
I'll
off
be-
right now. But
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy to be wrong, but it doesn't seem likely.
Yeah. It'd be nice though, as a fallback option if you don't land one of the top middle infielders. Segura would be a nice fallback plan there. All right, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast featuring the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day and a beautiful baseball weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Peace.